I was on the brink of death when I was reciting the Lord's Prayer, and that's where I just gave it all to God. So it was December 20th, I came down with a flu and went to the doctor, and he gave me some flu meds, and I went home and immediately started to feel worse. Had serious chest pain, so I went to the hospital. They immediately admitted me into the intensive care unit based on a very aggressive form of pneumonia. I had to be in the intensive care unit for about 14 days. They put me on a ventilator, and just basically within 24 hours, I had about 90% of my lung capacity taken up with fluids. So it was essentially a point where I was drowning. I was at the brink of passing away. There was nothing more that could be done. And at that moment, I just said, I need God. I need God's help. And I started saying the Lord's Prayer. I blacked out after I said the prayer as much as I could, and I couldn't hang on anymore. So, and that's the point where it just all flowed into His hands. As I just let go of everything, that's at a point where they actually induced me into a medical coma. So I was then out for about 11 days. I remember feeling like I was swimming through darkness, and I kept looking up for a light, and I kept swimming and swimming, and I could see a light, and got to the point where I actually remember gasping, going, and I reached that light, and then that's when I started to come to, and that was 11 days later when actually I started to come out of that coma, when they had stabilized me and pulled me through that situation. They actually had to tap this into the side of my chest and drain my lungs. And it's interesting to me when I look at Jesus on the crucifix, because He gets stabbed in the side of the chest. What saved me was being stabbed in the side of the chest when they could finally release all the fluids out of my lungs and start some emergency treatments. And that was all after I said the Lord's Prayer. That's when I was no longer conscious. These days, it's 22 years later, it's like every Sunday we go to church. In that moment when you stand up with your loved ones and you say the Lord's Prayer, it comes back to me every week. I really learned that I could rely on God and pray to God and understand that He answers your prayers. It could be the Lord's Prayer, it could be conversation, it could be quietly thinking to Him of ways that you could use His help. It's uncanny. Anytime I have an ask, a prayer, it always is answered. It may not be like within that moment, sometimes shortly after, or the next day, or soon after, you realize, wow, I did pray that. I did ask for His love and support or guidance on something, and it happened.